Hi, welcome to Anaprime Recap. A suspicious ice cream man drives the neighborhood kids around while making them addicted to a mysterious ice cream. We continue our journey to the Junji Ito Maniac series. Our first story today is titled Toontown. Tsuyoshi and his sister Kaoru are on a vacation trip to meet Izumi, a friend they both have in common. In the middle of the journey, the older brother tries to look at a map to see if they are on the right road, but in doing so takes his concentration off the steering. Kaoru warns that there is a person in the middle of the road. Tsuyoshi tries to brake the car before it could hit her, but is unable to stop in time. Upon impact, the girl who was in the middle of the road is thrown a few meters. The brothers try to render aid. Their plan is to take her to the nearest hospital. However, she is already badly injured. Tsuyoshi puts her in his car. Then Kaoru realizes that the girl no longer shows any vital signs. She explains the critical situation to her brother, but he doesn't say a word, just continues on his way to town. While driving, Tsuyoshi thinks about getting rid of the girl's body and believes that the mountains are the ideal place to do this. When they arrive in town, the brothers come across a strange monument in the middle of the street. Kaoru realizes that it was a tombstone, but doesn't understand why someone would put it in the middle of the street. Tsuyoshi just goes around the object with his car and drives, but a few seconds later, they come across a street with numerous scattered gravestones. Tsuyoshi realizes that he will not be able to follow the road with that blockage, so he decides to go back, but when he reverses his vehicle he ends up destroying a gravestone. The boy gets out of the car to try to fix the problem, and some locals approach him and offer to help him fix the vehicle. The men say that they will have to use the hydraulic jack to make the adjustment, so they ask the driver to get the object from the trunk. Tsuyoshi tries to act without arousing suspicion. He quickly opens the compartment and removes the object that was beside the girl's body. After a few minutes, the car is repaired and the residents explain that there are tombstones all over the city. At first, they appeared in places where people lost their lives due to traffic accidents, but as time went on, they were placed wherever someone died. At this point, Izumi arrives on the scene and finds her friends. After the incident, she takes them to her home. Izumi says that she has gotten used to all the gravestones around town, including one in her house where the former resident lost his life. The girl says that her friends should not worry about this and invites them to take a walk through the city. There are gravestones scattered everywhere. While walking, they pass in front of a hospital and come across a situation that is common in the region. The doctors carry a patient outside and leave him on the ground. Izumi explains that if they don't do this, the hospital would become one big tombstone warehouse, because many people lose their lives there, so in order to avoid a big agglomeration of tombstones, the doctors bring out the terminally ill patients and let them die. After a few minutes walking through the city, the trio finds a cat that had died as a result of a hit-and-run accident. Tsuyoshi has the idea of removing the animal's body from the street, but Izumi warns him not to do so, since the stone will be placed exactly where the cat lost its life. Kaoru feels bad as she remembers what she and her brother did, so Izumi returns home with her friends and provides care for the girl. While they were talking in the living room, Izumi's mother asks her daughter if Ayumi had arrived yet. The girl answers no and wonders where she could be at that moment. Tsuyoshi, out of curiosity, asks who Ayumi is. His friend replies that she is her younger sister. The girl left alone in the morning and went for a walk in the mountain region. As it was late, Izumi's parents are worried that she has been taken away, so they decide to call the police. Tsuyoshi and Kaoru listen to all the conversation in the room and come to the conclusion that the girl in the trunk is Izumi's sister. Kaoru tells him that she didn't recognize her before because her face was completely swollen. The next day, the police begin the search for Ayumi. The two brothers also decide to help find the missing girl. Tsuyoshi tries to comfort Izumi and tells her that her sister will surely be found safe. The rescue team explores the entire mountain region, but cannot find any trace of what might have happened to the girl. At this point, one of the villagers says that they could look in the vicinity of the sanctuary. All the people go to the site, but nothing is found. Tsuyoshi asks the old man about a well that was in that place and finds out that no one knows who built that structure. The man also reveals that the well has the function of storing the bodies of people taken from the place where they lost their lives. The man asks the two visitors to follow him to the hospital to observe with their own eyes how the process occurs. When they arrive there, the brothers are confronted with the body of the patient who had died the day they were walking with Izumi. They notice that the body begins to gain a rocky layer and gradually takes on the shape of a tombstone, so the brothers understand that the tombstones are generated from the body of the person or animal that lost its life. They are tormented by this fact and decide to return to Izumi's house, but when they get close to the place, they realize that the girl was watching the inside of Tsuyoshi's car. Izumi tells her friends that the police found blood and braking marks on the road near the mountain. She is confused and believes that her sister may have been run over, after which she gets on her bicycle and says she is going to the site to find some clue. Kaworu feels bad about the whole situation and tells her brother that she can no longer bear to hide the secret. Tsuyoshi asks her to hold on, and that same night, after one last conversation with Izumi, they decide to leave town. The boy drives to the shrine and tells his sister that he will throw Ayumi's body into the well, because no one will be able to find her. He gets out of the car and opens the trunk, and as he does so, he is confronted with an extremely bizarre image. The girl's body was totally destroyed with a strong odor and some parts were already being petrified. He asks his sister to help him carry her to the well, and when he gets there, he gets rid of Ayumi's body. During all this process, Tsuyoshi ended up cutting himself with one of the rocks coming out of the girl's body, and the bracelet the girl had on her wrist fell near the well. A few minutes later, Tsuyoshi begins to hear a strange noise coming from the well, and then a gigantic creature comes out of it. The monster is made up of several bodies that were dumped there, and on top of it was Ayumi. The girl screams uncontrollably and says that Tsuyoshi is the one who ran her over. He tries to tell her it's a lie, but at that moment Kaoru calls his name and the boy realizes he was having a bad dream. Immediately, they return to the city and try to leave all the chaos behind. Koro is determined that she will carry this guilt until the last day of her life. A few days pass and Izumi, trying to find clues about her sister, finds her bracelet beside the well at the shrine. Tsuyoshi was in a lot of pain due to the wound on his hand. Gradually several boulders began to appear. It didn't take long before the boy was completely covered by stones, becoming a terrifying creature. Izumi and her family could not bear to live with the loss of Ayumi, and a few days later, they became 3 tombstones. Now we will leave for the second story, called Ice Cream Bus. Sanahara and his son have recently moved and are still getting used to the habits of their new neighborhood. On any given afternoon, an ice cream cart drives by and begins to attract the attention of several children. The man approaches a group of mothers and asks what is going on. They answer that for a month the ice cream bus has been passing by the condo every Saturday, and it also takes all the children for a fun ride. The driver also says that this is a special way to make the children feel happy, and that everyone can enjoy a delicious ice cream while strolling around the area. On the same day, Tomoki, Sanahara's son, cries because his father didn't buy him an ice cream. The boy says that his father's food is horrible and so he would like to live with his mother. The next afternoon, the ice cream cart makes a stop at the condominium. Sanahara decides to buy an ice cream for his son as an apology and lets the boy join the ride that would take place that afternoon. Tomoki finds this amazing. He gets on the bus with several other children, and everyone has a great time all afternoon. That night, the boy comes back happy and tells his father that he had a great time, including spending the whole afternoon eating a mountain of ice cream with his friends. As the days went by, Tomoki made some friends and they all loved the Saturday outings. One night, Sanahara asks his son if he still feels like going to live with his mother, but the boy answers no. After all, the ice cream bus doesn't go there. Another Saturday arrives and the children enthusiastically get into the vehicle for the ride. Sanahara talks to the driver to get him to join in, but the man replies that adults are not allowed. A few moments before the bus leaves, Tomoki's father gets a view from inside the vehicle. He sees several children kneeling down while trying to eat 2 giant mountains of ice cream. This scene scares him, but he still decides not to worry. One day when he comes home from work, he realizes that his son and his friends are having fun together. When he enters the house, he finds the boy eating a mountain of ice cream. All the kids were melting into a bizarre edible substance. Tomoki tells his father that he needs to eat in order not to melt. Sanahara is startled by this and immediately tries to make his son stop ingesting the stuff, but as he does so the boy's head detaches from his body and then begins to melt like everyone else. Now let's start the story of the third tale, entitled, Mold. Akasaka returns to his home after spending a year working abroad. During all this time, his residence was rented out to his former teacher, Rogi, who lived there with his family. Upon entering the place, he realizes that there was no one there. He walks down the hallway and when he gets to the kitchen he finds food scattered everywhere and a lot of dirt. He opens the refrigerator and is very upset to see that all the food was spoiled. Akasaka goes to the bathroom to clean himself and finds his bathtub filled with a disgusting, rotten substance. At that moment he hears his brother's voice in the doorway and quickly goes to seek explanations from him. Seiji says that he did not expect his brother to arrive so early and apologizes for not cleaning the house before his arrival. The boy then goes off to find the pet Akasaka had left for the family to take care of. Akasaka recalls that 1 year ago, his brother called asking him to rent his house to Professor Rogi and he promptly refused, because he didn't like that man. Seiji insists that Rogi was renovating the house and needed a place to stay. For this reason, the boy gets his brother's permission. The next day, Rogi goes to Akasaka's house with the whole family. The old man tries to be extremely kind. However, Akasaka decides that he really won't rent the property and says that he should look for another place to live. Rogi begs and says he has looked in many places and his last hope is the house of his former student. After much begging, Akasaka gives in and allows them to stay until he returns from his trip. Back in the present, the boy tries to sleep in his room, but is bothered by the presence of a rotten layer that has taken over all the walls of his room. As the days go by, Akasaka realizes that it is a mold that begins to consume his entire house quickly. The boy calls his brother to come to the place. Seiji is overwhelmed by this and can't even say something to comfort his brother. Akasaka asks what Rogi and his family did with the house and where they went. After all, they must have already rebuilt the old house. However, Seiji replies that they disappeared and their home was never rebuilt. Akasaka then explains that the mold has completely spread and there are some rooms that he can no longer enter. Seiji doesn't even want to enter the place and is startled when he sets foot inside the house. He then explains that one day, he decided to visit the family and saw only the baby crawling around the house, but the child was entirely covered by mold and was shedding remnants wherever he went. His sister was at the end of the hall and her legs were also already being consumed by mold. Seiji advises his brother to leave the house and no longer live in that place. Akasaka asks if he can live with the boy and he replies that it is a good idea. That night, the boy tries to go up to the second floor and realizes that the mold was advancing further and further. He walks down the hallway and due to the humidity comes into direct contact with the mold. When he scratches his face he is contaminated with particles of this disgusting substance. He manages to get into one of the rooms and realizes that Rogi and his entire family have joined the mold in the house. The bodies were hideous and covered in the disgusting substance. A few minutes later, Akasaka begins to feel a strong itch on his face and as the day progresses, his entire body is covered in mold. Finally, we come to the fourth macabre story, titled, The Thing That Drifted Ashore. One day in a small seaside town, the population is surprised by the appearance of a huge sea creature on the beach. In a few hours, several people crowd around the site with the sole objective of seeing the creature more clearly. However, everyone realizes that this is a bizarre being that has never been seen by anyone. The species in question has a frightening appearance and its state of decomposition made it even more disturbing. A team of scientists also went to the site to analyze the monster and obtain more information. In the midst of the commotion, a woman faints, but is quickly helped by a man who was also nearby. The young man takes her to a place further away and deduces that the stench of the creature caused her to faint. Mie replies that she simply hates the sea. She tells him that 7 years ago, she lost her fiancé in a shipwreck that occurred off the coast of Izu. The man tries to console her, but before he could say anything, they both notice a strange movement in the people. The scientists who were on the scene note that some parts of the animal were already in a critical state of decomposition, revealing that the creature has several human bodies in its gut. One of the researchers says that the creature's victims don't seem to have been digested, so they decide to cut out the monster's intestines to remove what at first looked like human beings. As they do so, a large number of bodies are thrown out. They all look grotesque, but the scientists are shocked when these creatures begin to move, emitting terrifying grunts. Mie approaches the crowd and manages to recognize that her late fiancé was among the many bodies. She tries to communicate with him, but has no success. Scientists deduce that there was no possibility that it was the girl's fiancé. If he had died 7 months ago, he would surely have been digested by now by the animal. However, the researchers raise the theory that those humans had become parasites of that creature. This probably occurred when they started to feed on the nutrients that were inside the monster. To make matters worse, the bodies begin to move on their own and crawl in groups along the beach at this point. People's only guess is that this unknown animal lives in the depths of the ocean, where even sunlight cannot reach. The creature ingests only humans and turns them into its hosts forever. So, what did you think of this anime? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like it and subscribe for more anime recaps. See you next time.